Florida retirement advice is usually delivered by a man in khaki shorts who smells like sunscreen and bad financial decisions. Ignore him. Because while everyone is fighting over Naples condos and villages golf carts like it's the Hunger Games, Medicare edition, there are quiet Florida towns where retirees are living cheaper, calmer, and noticeably less angry. And no one is talking about them for a reason. Not because they're bad, because if people found out, they wouldn't stay cheap. Florida retirement media is broken. It's the same 5 cities on loop: Naples, Sarasota, Fort Myers. Like Florida only has one zip code and a Margaritaville gift shop. What they don't tell you is that those places are already priced for people who retired in 2009, bought at the bottom, and now act morally superior about it. This list exists for people who missed that wave and don't want to be punished for it. These are 7 secret Florida retirement spots you've probably never heard of. Places where housing is still rational, traffic doesn't feel like a hostile negotiation, and your neighbors don't treat grocery shopping like a competitive sport. Some are quiet, some are weird, some have mosquitoes with ambition. All of them have a catch, because Florida always does. Stick around, because one of these towns is so under the radar it feels like you accidentally found a cheat code. And if this saves you from overpaying for a beige condo next to a strip mall, hit like, subscribe, and emotionally prepare yourself, because city number 1 starts calm and ends slightly unhinged. Number 1, Palatka, Florida, where the prices are low, the river is beautiful, and time is personally given up. One forget it. Let's start with a town that feels like Florida forgot to tell Wall Street it exists. Palatka sits quietly along the street, Johns River in north-central Florida, about halfway between Jacksonville and Orlando, close enough to civilization to matter, far enough away to avoid becoming a traffic-based personality disorder. And here's the part that makes retirees blink twice. You can still buy a full, detached house here for the price of a Naples parking spot, plus emotional trauma. Median home prices hover in the "this has to be a typo" range for Florida. Not free, not glamorous, just stubbornly affordable. The kind of prices that make you whisper, "Wait, is something wrong with it?" And yes, something is wrong with it. We'll get there. Palatka has a population of roughly 10,000 people, which means you'll recognize faces, learn names, and eventually know who keeps putting weird lawn statues on their porch. It's an old-school river town with deep southern roots, a historic downtown that's trying its best, and a vibe that can best be described as unbothered by modern urgency. Industries here are practical and unspectacular. Healthcare, corrections, light manufacturing, and people who have worked the same job long enough to stop explaining it to outsiders. This is not a boom town. That's the point. So why is it cheap? First, jobs are limited. This is a retirement town, not a ladder-climbing paradise. If you need a buzzing economy to feel alive, Palatka will emotionally ghost you. Second, it's quiet. Like, turn your hearing aid down, quiet. The kind of quiet where the loudest thing at night is a frog with opinions. Third, it hasn't been Instagram certified yet. No pastel brunch spots, no influencer-approved piers, just a river, some oak trees, and people who wave because they actually mean it. Living here feels slower in a way that's either deeply healing or mildly alarming, depending on your personality. Mornings smell like river air and old wood. Afternoons move at the pace of a polite conversation that refuses to end. Even the traffic seems apologetic. But let's not romanticize too hard, because Florida always charges rent somehow. The summers are humid enough to feel personal. The bugs are organized. Mosquitoes here don't buzz, they coordinate. And if you're used to big box retail therapy, you'll learn quickly that shopping options are more functional than exciting. You don't browse here, you acquire. Healthcare access is decent for basics, but serious specialists usually mean a drive. That's the trade-off. Lower cost of living in exchange for planning ahead like a responsible adult, which, frankly, retirement was supposed to be about anyway. Here's the twist. For retirees who want peace over prestige, Palatka works frighteningly well. You get water views without water prices, you get neighbors instead of noise. You get a town that isn't trying to sell you an identity. It's not flashy, it's not trending, and that's exactly why it still works. Next town? Smaller, closer to the coast, and somehow even quieter, which should honestly concern you. Number 2, Cedar Key, Florida. Where the ocean is beautiful, the pace is suspiciously slow, and ambition drowned somewhere offshore. That vary. If Palatka felt like Florida forgot to hurry, Cedar Key feels like Florida actively chose to stop trying. This is a tiny Gulf Coast island town tucked off the Big Bend area, about an hour southwest of Gainesville. And when I say tiny, I mean population under 1,000. Not small town charm tiny. Did the census guy just shrug? Tiny. And yet, retirees quietly love it here. Cedar Key isn't beachfront glam. There are no high-rise condos, no valet parking, no illusion that this place is up and coming. The town looks like it made a mutual agreement with modern development to just not participate. Housing prices? Shockingly restrained for a coastal town. You're not buying oceanfront mansions, but modest homes and cottages still exist at numbers that don't immediately trigger a meeting with your financial advisor. Especially compared to anywhere south of Tampa where prices behave like they're on caffeine. So why hasn't Cedar Key been swallowed by retirees with matching visors? Because this place comes with conditions. First, weather humility. This town is very exposed. Hurricanes don't knock politely, they announce themselves. Locals plan around storms with the calm confidence of people who have emotionally accepted nature's authority. If you need constant climate reassurance, Cedar Key will stress you out. Second, limited everything. Grocery shopping here feels like a scavenger hunt with low expectations. Dining options are seafood forward because that's what's there. If you crave variety, you'll be driving inland like it's a pilgrimage. Third, time doesn't move correctly here. I once saw a man sit on a dock for so long that I genuinely questioned whether he was retired or just part of the landscape. Industries are simple. Fishing, tourism, the quiet, respectful kind, and people who figured out how little they actually need to be happy. There's no career ladder, just a ladder leaning against a boat. Living in Cedar Key is sensory in a way that sneaks up on you. The air smells like salt and wood and something fried. The nights are dark. The mornings arrive softly. The loudest sounds are gulls arguing and the occasional pickup truck announcing it still exists. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This town is emotionally perfect for a very specific retiree. Someone who wants calm. Someone who doesn't need stimulation. Someone who thinks nothing happening is a feature, not a problem. The catch? Medical care requires planning. Big box conveniences require patience, and storms require respect. This is not a plug-and-play retirement, it's a conscious lifestyle choice. But for retirees who want a coastal life without coastal chaos, and who understand that peace often comes with inconvenience, Cedar Key feels like a secret handshake. Florida hasn't revoked yet. Next up, inland again, cheaper, stranger, and somehow even more overlooked, which honestly shouldn't be possible at this point. Number 3, Defuniak Springs, Florida. Where the lake is perfectly round, the prices are oddly low, and nothing about it should make sense, but it does. Defuniak Springs is the kind of town that sounds fake until you accidentally drive through it and immediately think, wait, why is this not more expensive? Located in Florida's Panhandle, about halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee, this town sits far enough inland to avoid coastal chaos, but close enough to the Gulf that people will casually mention beaches like they're no big deal. Population? Roughly 6,000, which means the town functions more like a very polite group chat than a city. The centerpiece here is Lake Defuniak, a near-perfect circular lake that looks like someone copy-pasted it from a geometry textbook and forgot to add drama. Locals casually walk it every evening like it's not visually unsettling how symmetrical it is. Now the price shock. Homes here still live in that rare Florida category of retirement plausible without a second job. Modest houses, historic homes, and even some surprisingly well-kept properties sit at prices that feel 2 economic cycles behind. Not dirt cheap, just rational, which in Florida is basically suspicious. So what's the catch? First, this is real small-town Florida, not coastal cosplay, not curated charm. You're getting southern manners, church signs with opinions, and a pace of life that does not acknowledge urgency. If you need constant novelty, Defuniak Springs will emotionally underwhelm you. Second, jobs are not the point. The economy here is healthcare, local government, education, and people who already finished hustling. This town isn't trying to impress anyone, and that's exactly why it works for retirees. Third, you will drive. Want specialty healthcare? Larger retail? An airport that doesn't feel like a community center? You'll be heading to Fort Walton Beach, Destin, or Tallahassee. It's manageable, but it's part of the deal. Living here feels oddly balanced. Mornings are quiet enough to hear birds argue. Evenings feel deliberate. The air smells like pine and sun-warmed pavement. Traffic is so minimal it almost feels like a prank. But don't confuse calm with boring. There's a quiet pride here. Historic homes, a walkable downtown, seasonal festivals that feel genuinely local, and a community that hasn't been steamrolled by speculative buyers. You're not invisible here. People notice when you show up. That's either comforting or terrifying, depending on how much you enjoy anonymity. The hidden win? Defuniak Springs gives retirees distance without isolation. You're away from Florida's coastal price insanity, but not exiled. You get affordability, space, and a sense of place, without needing to cosplay a beach lifestyle you'll rarely use. It's not flashy. It's not viral. It's quietly functional, which is exactly what retirement is supposed to be. Next city? Back toward the coast, cheaper than it has any right to be, flatter than your expectations, and built for people who prefer calm over spectacle. Number 4, Lake Placid, Florida. Where the town is quiet, the prices are stuck in 2016, and everyone is aggressively okay with that. Lake Placid is what happens when Florida decides to whisper instead of shout. Tucked into Highlands County, south of Orlando and miles away from anything resembling coastal chaos, this town has around 2,500 people, which means it's not trying to entertain you, impress you, or upsell you on a lifestyle. It exists, calmly, persistently, almost defiantly. And yes, the prices are the first thing that hits you. Homes here still sit in that magical retirement zone where you don't need to get creative with your finances. We're talking modest single-family homes, quiet neighborhoods, and numbers that feel like they slipped through a crack in Florida's real estate inflation machine. Not beachfront cheap, Florida cheap, which is rarer and more valuable. So why hasn't Lake Placid exploded? Because this place is aggressively unglamorous. There's no coast, no nightlife, no illusion of becoming the next big thing. The town's identity is built around lakes, murals, fishing, gardening, and people who go to bed early without apologizing for it. If your version of fun involves tranquility and routine, Lake Placid feels like a soft exhale. If not, it may feel like emotional beige. Industries here are exactly what you'd expect: agriculture, healthcare support, local services, and retirees who have fully exited the productivity Olympics. Nobody's pitching startups. Nobody's hustling. Time moves here like it's being paid hourly. Living in Lake Placid is sensory in a very specific way. The air smells like lake water and cut grass. The nights are quiet enough to hear insects negotiating dominance. The mornings arrive slowly, without drama, without urgency, without a push notification telling you to optimize anything. But Florida always sends an invoice. Healthcare is adequate for everyday needs, but specialists mean a drive. Shopping is practical, not exciting. You won't browse, you'll go in, buy what you need, and leave, which honestly feels spiritually healthy. And yes, it's hot. The kind of heat that doesn't scare you, it just reminds you to respect shade and hydration. This is not coastal breeze Florida. This is inland, sun-committed Florida. Here's the underrated part retirees don't talk about enough. Lake Placid is emotionally low noise. No tourists flooding in. No seasonal chaos. No constant construction trying to reinvent the place. Just people living life at a pace that makes your nervous system recalibrate. For retirees who want affordability, stability, and a town that isn't trying to become something else, Lake Placid quietly delivers, without branding, without hype, and without asking for your attention. Next up, north again, smaller, older, and sitting on a river that's seen more Florida history than most cities ever will. Number 5, Chattahoochee, Florida. Where the river runs wide, the town runs quiet, and Florida feels older. Chattahoochee is Florida without the marketing department. Sitting in the far northwest corner of the state, right along the Georgia border, this town has a population hovering around 3,000 people. and every single one of them seems completely unbothered by the rest of Florida's identity crisis. If Miami is a nightclub and Naples is a gated brunch, Chattahoochee is a front porch with a river view and zero expectations. Let's talk price shock. Homes here are still deeply affordable, even by, wait, this is Florida? Standards. We're talking houses that cost less than a remodeled kitchen in Tampa, not glamorous, not renovated for TikTok. Just solid, livable homes that don't require a dramatic financial backstory to explain how you got them. So why is it this cheap? First, location perception. This is Panhandle, Florida, which already lives in the shadow of the rest of the state. And Chattahoochee sits north of the Panhandle buzz, inland, rural, and proudly disconnected from beach town energy. Second, employment is limited. The local economy revolves around healthcare, corrections, small services, and people who already clocked out of ambition years ago. If you're retired, that's a feature. If you're not, it's a hard stop. Third, this town does not perform for outsiders. No festivals pretending to be culture, no curated downtown moments. Just a river, some history, and a pace of life that makes you forget what day it is and then not care. Living here feels deeply grounded. The Apalachicola River is wide, slow-moving, and quietly impressive. The air smells like water, pine, and heat that doesn't apologize. Nights are dark in a way that reminds you how bright the world usually is. Mornings arrive without urgency, without noise, without demands. But let's be honest, because this town will not lie to you. Healthcare is basic. Serious specialists mean driving. Retail options are minimal. Entertainment is self-generated. If you need constant stimulation or novelty, Chattahoochee will gently but firmly bore you into submission. And yet, retirees who choose this town tend to stay. Why? Because Chattahoochee offers something rare: psychological stillness. No tourists, no traffic spikes, no seasonal chaos. Just days that feel longer and costs that feel manageable. It's not for everyone. It's not supposed to be. But for retirees who want affordability, quiet, and a Florida life that feels more like life and less like a performance, Chattahoochee delivers unapologetically. Next, we head south again, closer to civilization, closer to convenience, and hiding in plain sight in a county everyone drives past and never stops in. Number 6. Arcadia, Florida. Where downtown still works, prices forgot to panic, and Florida feels functional. Arcadia is what happens when a town quietly minds its business, while the rest of Florida loses its mind. Sitting in DeSoto County, about an hour inland from Sarasota and Fort Myers, Arcadia has roughly 8,000 residents and absolutely zero interest in pretending it's coastal, trendy, or about to be discovered. Which is impressive, because it's close enough to expensive Florida to be dangerous, yet somehow untouched by the pricing madness. Here's the price shock. You can still buy a real house here, yard, driveway, breathing room, for money that doesn't require a dramatic backstory or a second career in consulting in Southwest Florida. In this economy, that alone should make you suspicious. So let's explain the why. Arcadia is inland ranch and river Florida. Agriculture runs the show. Cattle, citrus, logistics, healthcare support, practical industries that don't attract speculative buyers or influencer attention. No one is trying to brand this place. That's the magic. The downtown actually exists, like functions. Brick buildings, local shops, people who recognize each other, and a pace that says, "We'll get to it. You don't rush here." The town simply waits you out. Living in Arcadia feels grounded. The air smells like grass, sun, and mild stubbornness. Days are warm but manageable. Nights are quiet in a way that feels earned. Traffic is light enough that you'll occasionally check your mirrors out of habit, not necessity. But, and Florida never skips this part, there are trade-offs. Entertainment is limited. Dining is local, not exciting. You won't discover new things weekly. If novelty fuels you, Arcadia will feel repetitive. And yes, summer heat here is real. Inland Florida heat that reminds you why ceiling fans are a cultural pillar. Healthcare access is solid for routine needs, but specialty care often means heading toward the coast. It's not difficult, it just requires planning, which is a recurring theme with towns that don't overcharge you. Here's the underrated advantage retirees quietly appreciate. Arcadia gives you control. You're close enough to beaches to visit, far enough to avoid their costs and chaos, close enough to cities for appointments, far enough to sleep peacefully. You get Florida without Florida screaming at you. It's not sexy. It's not viral. It doesn't need to be. Arcadia works because it never tried to be anything else. One town left, smaller, stranger. And so, under the radar, it feels like Florida accidentally left it unlocked. Number 7. Wakulla, Florida. Where nothing is happening, everything is affordable, and peace feels almost suspicious. Wauchula is the kind of town you don't find. You end up in it. Located in Hardy County, just south of Arcadia, Wauchula has a population of around 5,000 people and the emotional energy of a place that already made peace with itself decades ago. No branding, no hype, no desperate attempt to become something louder, and somehow, it works. Let's start with the part that makes retirees sit up straighter. Housing here is still unapologetically cheap. Not starter home cheap. Not fixer-upper with character cheap. Just regular houses at prices that feel like Florida forgot to forward the memo about inflation. So why hasn't Wauchula been discovered? Because this town offers nothing to outsiders and everything to the right retiree. There's no coast, no tourism economy, no nightlife, no illusion of momentum. The main industries are agriculture, food processing, healthcare support, and people who've lived here long enough to stop explaining why they like it. Wauchula doesn't chase opportunity. It contains it. Living here is almost aggressively quiet. Mornings arrive without sound. Afternoons stretch out like they have nowhere else to be. Nights are dark enough that you'll notice stars again, which feels illegal in most of Florida. The sensory experience is subtle but real. Warm air, cut grass, distant farm machinery, and the occasional train reminding you the outside world still exists. Shopping is functional. Dining is simple. Errands don't turn into events. Now, let's talk about the catch, because it's important. Healthcare is basic. Specialized care means driving. Entertainment is self-generated. If you need constant stimulation, Wauchula will feel like a sensory deprivation chamber. And yes, summer heat here is committed. Shade becomes strategy. But here's the uncomfortable truth retirees discover after a few months. Peace compounds. Your expenses stay low. Your days feel longer. Your stress slowly loses relevance. Wauchula isn't exciting, and that's exactly why it's powerful. No tourists flooding in, no seasonal chaos, no speculative buyers driving prices into the stratosphere. Just a town that quietly lets you live. And that's the theme of this entire list. Florida doesn't only reward people chasing prestige, it quietly rewards the ones who choose calm before the crowd arrives. Here's the uncomfortable truth about Florida retirement. The best places don't advertise themselves. They don't have glossy brochures, drone shots, or a marketing team screaming luxury living while quietly charging you for the privilege of breathing. They stay cheap because they're calm. They stay calm because they don't chase attention. And once attention arrives, the math breaks. Every town on this list works for the same reason. They value stability over spectacle. No chaos. No hype cycles. Just places where your money lasts longer and your nervous system finally stands down. Are they perfect? No. Florida never is. But if you're retired, or close, perfection isn't the goal anymore. Control is. Predictability is. Knowing your monthly costs won't jump just because a lifestyle blog discovered your zip code. If you've been waiting for a sign to stop chasing the best and start choosing what works, this was it. Drop a comment with which town surprised you the most. Hit like if this saved you thousands, and subscribe, because the smartest Florida moves are always the ones no one's yelling about. And next time, we'll talk about the towns people swear are perfect, and why retirees quietly leave them.